Today is not a day to be pleasant. Jupiter aligns with Lilith and gives the microphone precisely to the part of you that has always been called dramatic, difficult, intense, selfish, too much. That version that sees the crack where everyone pretends everything is fine. The one that feels in her body when something is wrong, even if no one confirms it. Think about the times you were told you exaggerate, that you complicate things, that you create problems where there are none. The times your no was treated as a character flaw. In family, in relationships, in groups, present but out of place. I'm here, but I'm not. To keep belonging, you started diminishing yourself, speaking softer, swallowing anger, apologizing for feeling what you felt. Lilith is this internal point that always said no to what diminished you and was silenced. Today, Jupiter points the spotlight at her. Today's sky doesn't ask you to fit in. It asks you to understand why you shrank. Instead of asking if they are ready for your truth, the question is if you are ready to stop betraying yourself. If you feel this exiled place stirring inside you, anchor this in the field. Write in the comments, as a clear and simple decree, no more shrinking. Before talking about astrological charts, we need to talk about the seating chart, that invisible map that formed in your life early on. Who sits where? Who can say what? Who is heard and who is politely ignored? Lilith is almost always born sitting at the end of the table, seeing everything, feeling everything, but with the sensation that if she opens her whole mouth, she loses her seat. Think about your childhood. Maybe you were the child who perceived tension in the air before the fight began, who saw the side eye, the heavy silence, the polite lie. And when you said something was strange, the answers came. Imagination, fussiness, drama. Maybe you were too intense, asked too many questions, questioned rules that no one touched. The message was subtle and repeated. To stay here, lower the volume of your truth. Your Lilith learned to retreat. In group oops, the story repeats in different clothes. You enter environments where everyone seems to accept certain dynamics. Jokes that make you shrink. Comments that pierce through you. Unspoken rules that make you feel wrong just for existing the way you do. When you try to point out that something isn't healthy, the chorus comes, "Wow, what an exaggeration. You take everything so seriously. No one else sees it this way." Lilith sees the crack. The group prefers the painted wall. To avoid being thrown out, you start to doubt yourself. In love, the exile is even more intimate. You feel when something has crossed the line. Disrespect, manipulation, emotional games, small disloyalties that keep growing. Your Lilith wants to get up from the table, wants to say no, wants to leave. But the part trained to be lovable whispers that maybe you are asking for too much. You start to reduce the list of what you need. You start to negotiate with your own soul. That's when Lilith enters the dungeon, trapped but awake. The central feeling of this exile is being present and absent at the same time. I'm here, but I'm not. You smile, participate, fulfill roles. Inside, you feel you've betrayed something sacred, that you left someone behind. That someone is you. More specifically, the part that felt clean anger when something was unjust. The part that said no without making a PowerPoint. The part that knew she wasn't crazy for noticing what no one wanted to name. Every time you hear, "You complicate things, you ruin the mood, you can't just let it go," a message is reinforced. Your internal radar is a problem. Your refusal is a defect. Your intensity is a threat. Lilith accumulates these phrases like marks on her body, until one day you start to say them too. I am difficult. I destroy everything. I am too much. You start to repeat the speech of those who are bothered by your truth. And this is the apex of exile, when the person themselves starts to police and punish their Lilith. No one else needs to do that job. Jupiter Trine Lilith illuminates exactly this point today. It doesn't come to say you are always right about everything. It comes to ask at what moment you accepted playing the villain in your own story to keep belonging. When was it that you decided it would be better to be seen as nice, practical, malleable than to be seen as someone who says, "Not here"? How many times did you feel in your stomach that something was wrong, and yet you smiled and followed the script to avoid being the buzzkill? This aspect opens a rare space for honesty with yourself. It's not about going out and attacking the world. It's about admitting where you banished yourself, in which relationship you lowered your voice, in which environment you turned off your radar, which version of yourself you still invest in today just to avoid facing the fear of being alone with your own truth. Lilith isn't the part that destroys everything. She is the part that refuses to live in what is already destroyed on the inside. Today, the invitation is to look at your memories with this filter, where you felt you needed to make yourself smaller to fit in, where your no was turned into guilt, where your vision was ridiculed to the point that you thought you were crazy. And instead of judging yourself for having been silent, recognize the survival intelligence you had. You did what you could to stay alive in that scenario. Now the sky changes the light. With Jupiter lighting up Lilith, the question shifts from how do I fit in to how do I return whole to my own place. Jupiter is the planet that amplifies, legitimizes, gives the stage. When it trines Lilith, it's not the judge calling you to explain yourself. It's as if the universe was saying, I know what they did to this part of you. Now I want to see it whole, unedited. The energy shifts from a courtroom to a stage. The question is no longer whether your Lilith is acceptable, but what you do with the spotlight that is falling on her today. Notice the themes that return on this day. Conversations about justice, truth, boundaries, secrets, about things that were under the rug. Situations where someone says exactly what you have always felt, but never had the courage to say. Or strange opportunities that seem tailor-made for the version of you that you hid. An invitation to a more authentic project. A chance to leave a suffocating dynamic. A possibility to work, create, or relate in a way that honors your truth more than your mask. Jupiter is bringing context. It's showing what happens when Lilith isn't just a problem, but a piece of the picture. Jupiter in contact with Lilith doesn't promise comfort, it promises meaning. It takes the old anger, the swallowed no, the intuition that saw the crack and asks, what if all this is part of your calling, not a mistake? Maybe you were born with a finer antenna for lies, hypocrisy, abuse, injustice. Maybe you've always felt the mood shift before everyone else. Maybe you've always perceived the emotional cost of certain choices that others called normal. Today, this sensitivity isn't being marked with a red grade, it's being underlined with a golden pen. This doesn't mean everyone around you will applaud. Jupiter is not social applause, it's the expansion of consciousness. As it amplifies Lilith, you may notice exactly who benefits from your diminished version. Who is comfortable when you pretend you didn't see? Who breathes a sigh of relief when you swallow your no? These people, structures, jobs, contracts, relationships tend to get restless when you start to experiment with a little more truth. Jupiter illuminates the coherence on your side. The other's discomfort is just a symptom. Observe how, during this transit, life may start to offer you scenes where you are called to take a stand. A comment that pierces you and you feel you can't just laugh it off anymore. A joke that was always normal and today sounds too heavy. A work or family dynamic where you catch yourself thinking, if I don't stand up for myself here, no one will. This is Jupiter's stage. It's not a spiritual conference. It's the dinner table, the meeting, the hallway conversation, the group chat, places where before you would shrink, so as not to ruin the mood. Jupiter can also bring teachers, readings, content, symbols that validate your experience. A book that expresses exactly what you felt and thought was crazy. A video, a speech, a text that describes your Lilith with frightening accuracy. This isn't just the algorithm. It's synchronicity. The field is telling you, you are not alone in this perception. This is language, not a flaw. When this kind of confirmation arrives, instead of just consuming and moving on, stop for a second. Admit to yourself, I knew it. That phrase, spoken inwardly, honors Lilith. Jupiter's role today is not to tell you to go out breaking everything, but to give you internal permission to stop judging yourself for feeling what you feel. It invites you to shift the focus from the question, why am I like this, to what purpose does this part serve in me? What is this clean anger for? This discomfort with injustice? This radar for toxic relationships? This difficulty in accepting too little? Maybe this is precisely the part that will stop you from selling yourself short in the coming years. Accepting the stage Jupiter offers doesn't mean performing Lilith as a rebellious character. It means stopping hiding her behind the obedient version. Today, when a situation calls for your truth, you might find yourself at that familiar crossroads. Say what they expect to hear, or say what is real. Jupiter is behind you, nodding as if to say, if you choose the truth, I will hold the consequence with you. It's not a guarantee of an easy scenario. It's a guarantee that you will not be betraying yourself alone. Before Lilith was exiled, she was renamed. No one takes you from yourself all at once. First, they alter the meaning of what you are. They turn your lucidity into exaggeration, your sensitivity into weakness, your righteous anger into a lack of control. When Jupiter touches Lilith, these phrases return like an echo. Not to haunt you, but for you to finally recognize where the script you've been repeating against yourself came from. Remember the times you pointed out a real problem and received a wow, so dramatic. Drama is one of the favorite words to demonize Lilith. It serves to diminish any deep perception that disrupts the maintenance of the facade. You feel something is wrong, you put it on the table, and suddenly the meeting is no longer about the crack, but about your tone. The focus shifts from the situation to you. Over time, you begin to doubt your own radar. Another classic phrase is, you complicate everything. It appears when you refuse to accept shortcuts that harm your ethics, your body, or your soul. When you question what everyone else has decided to swallow. When you ask why, in an environment that just wants to leave it alone so it's not a hassle. It's easier to accuse you of complicating things than to admit that things are too simple to be honest. Then there's, no one else sees it. This is one of the most venomous because it isolates. It puts you in the position of the strange one, the paranoid one, the outsider. If no one else sees it, then the error must be yours. Over time, instead of trusting your own perception more, you begin to calibrate your vision by what the group tolerates. This is the moment Lilith learns to be silent, to survive. And the all-time favorite, you are too much. Too intense, too sensitive, too radical, too serious, too demanding. Too much creates the illusion that there is an acceptable middle ground, a neutral version that pleases everyone. The hidden message is, if you were less you, it would be easier to love you, to deal with you, to have you around. Few blows are as deep as this one. It makes it seem like your full existence is an inconvenience in itself. Today, with Jupiter expanding Lilith, the sky invites you to do something different with these phrases. Instead of swallowing or rebutting them, you can translate them. When someone says, "You complicate everything," the translation might be, "You are touching on something I don't want to face." When they say, "No one else sees it," it might mean, "No one else has the courage to name it." When they say, "You are too much," it might be, "You exceed the measure of control I have over this environment." This isn't about inflating the ego. It's about returning the weight of these words to those who threw them. This doesn't mean Lilith is never wrong, never exaggerates, never projects. Of course, that can happen. But today, the point isn't to prove you were right about everything. It's to perceive the pattern of demonization. How many times you were framed by these phrases throughout your life. How many times they appeared precisely when you were touching on something structural. How many times you fell silent after hearing them. Recognizing this script is breaking an old spell. Because the most dangerous thing is not hearing these phrases from others. It's starting to repeat them to yourself. I complicate things. I destroy. I ruin everything. I am too much. When this happens, external censorship becomes internal censorship, and Lilith is incarcerated without needing guards. Jupiter today points to this cell and asks if you are willing to return these lines to their place of origin. Perhaps throughout this day, you'll find yourself in similar situations. Someone drops a "you're exaggerating," and for a second, you feel the urge to shrink again. This is where the transit plays out, between the impulse to diminish yourself and the possibility of saying, even if only inwardly, "I will not call myself crazy for feeling what I feel." This is how, little by little, you stop accepting the role of the villain written by those who are afraid of your truth. Lilith doesn't integrate with pretty speeches. She integrates with decisions. Today, with Jupiter illuminating this exiled part, the most spiritual move you can make isn't to light a candle. It's to choose one no that you won't undo tomorrow. It doesn't have to be the biggest one of your life. It can be small in the external world and enormous on the inside. A no to the dynamic that always casts you in the role of the savior. A no to the message you always answer, even when exhausted. A no to the favor you do out of habit, not heart. It's that request that just by appearing already makes your body sink. Lilith knows, today, you don't negotiate with that feeling. Think of a situation where you usually betray yourself. A meeting you accept so as not to disappoint. An extra task you take on so as not to be seen as lazy. A conversation where you hear disrespect and pretend it was a joke. Now imagine the usual script. You say yes, swallow it, deliver, and return emptied. Today's transit is asking you if you can really stand another round of this. The Lilithian gesture is not to explode and sever everything at once. It is to coldly choose one point from which you will not turn back. A boundary you know You will honor even when the guilt arrives, because it will. Guilt is the last guard of the prison. It shows up to remind you of all the old scripts. They'll think you're selfish, they'll pull away, they'll talk about you. This is precisely where Jupiter steps in, offering a higher view. Who do you need to be to stop abandoning yourself? Maybe this no is a simple "I can't today," written without excessive excuses, without drama, without a plan to compensate. Maybe it's not participating in that conversation that always leaves you feeling heavy. Maybe it's turning off your phone at a time you never allowed yourself. Maybe it's saying calmly, "For me, this crosses the line." You don't need to raise your voice. Firmness doesn't come from volume. It comes from the decision not to contradict yourself later. The risk, of course, is displeasing others. Some people will find your change of script strange. They will test it. They will try to pull you back to the old place. Here is the turning point. You don't need to convince anyone that your no is valid. You only need to convince yourself that it is sacred. When you hold a boundary like this, the entire field registers it. You stop being an easy frontier to invade. Today, choose one specific no and write it down somewhere, even if it's in a note on your phone. Here, I abandon myself no more. This is your contract with Lilith. It's not a New Year's resolution. It's a daily pact. If guilt comes screaming tomorrow, return to this sentence. Remember that integrating her isn't about becoming difficult. It's about stopping being accessible to everything that diminishes you. This is the kind of decision Jupiter blesses in this transit. He is not asking you to become a hero. He is asking that, in at least one point in your life, you stop diminishing yourself to fit in. The rest, you adjust later. Today, the work is to inaugurate a new standard of what is acceptable for you. And that standard is born from a no that you finally sustain until the end. How do you know it wasn't just an isolated moment of courage? How to perceive that Lilith has really begun to leave the internal dungeon and take her place in your life. The signs don't come in the form of fireworks. They appear in subtle but unmistakable nuances in the way you behave and feel after the no you sustained. The first sign is the reduced need to explain yourself. You might still feel guilty. You might still think about sending a long message justifying why you couldn't, why you changed your mind, why you took a stand. But in the middle of typing, something in you gets tired. Your hand stops. You delete half of it, and you send something short, honest, without self-accusation. This is your Lilith saying, "I don't owe a report for existing." The second sign is a strange peace after positioning yourself. Not euphoria, not victorious anger, but an internal silence different from the one before. It's not the silence of someone who has shut up. It's the silence of someone who is finally aligned on the inside. You might even fear the external consequences, but you feel a new firmness in your chest. As if even if the whole world disapproved, a part of you said, "At least this time, I stayed on my own side." The third sign is the change in the quality of your relationships. Some become more tense. People accustomed to your reduced version may complain, emotionally blackmail, or pull away a little. Others, however, begin to approach your real center of gravity. People who respect your boundaries, who don't need you to diminish yourself for them to feel big. Jupiter with Lilith reorganizes the cast. Those who only knew how to deal with you when you were small find it strange. Those who always saw your truth feel relieved. The fourth sign is the end of certain fantasies. You stop dreaming of being accepted by those who have no space for your truth. You stop insisting on environments that only work if you edit yourself. The fantasy of one day they will understand begins to give way to something drier and freer. Maybe they never will, and even so, I will not betray myself. This hurts, but it cleanses. It's disillusionment, not defeat. When these signs appear together, less explanation, peace after the boundary, reconfiguration of bonds, the end of old fantasies. It's because Lilith's energy is no longer just a concept on the chart. It has begun to become posture. And posture, unlike emotion, does not depend on the day's mood. Jupiter speaks of a greater path, of the story you are writing beyond today. Lilith alone can turn into chronic revolt, sabotage, isolation. Jupiter alone can turn into an inflated dream, a PowerPoint purpose, lots of vision and little truth. When the two meet in a trine, the sky is suggesting a marriage. The part of you that does not accept lies in service of what you came here to do. Think about the moments in your life when you tried to follow a good path and got sick on the inside. Relationships that looked good on paper, jobs admired by everyone, choices that were correct according to everyone, except your body. At some point, your Lilith began to sabotage. You were late, you felt empty, you couldn't give your best, you got sick, you lost your shine. It seemed like self-sabotage. Today, under this transit, the question changes. What if that was just your soul refusing a destiny where it would have to live amputated? To integrate Lilith into Jupiter is to ask with honesty, what version of success am I willing to sustain without betraying myself? What kind of work, relationship, expression allows my truth to be present, even if it makes me less pleasant? What is the way to serve the world that doesn't require me to make a pact with what has always harmed me? The answer doesn't come ready-made, but it leaves traces. Where do you feel you could grow without diminishing yourself? Maybe you realize that your radar for injustice is part of your calling, not a personality flaw. That your intolerance for false environments indicates the type of place you should never get into again. That your difficulty in accepting little points you toward a type of work, art, or love that is not based on crumbs. Jupiter amplifies this. It shows that what you called a temper problem may be precisely what stops you from selling yourself short. Placing Lilith in service of Jupiter is not about becoming a saint or a martyr. It is about accepting, little by little, that your greater path involves speaking truths that many do not want to hear, living in a way that many do not understand, and still not going back to the dungeon. You don't need the whole world to validate this. You need to stop sabotaging yourself when life generously offers you a scenario where this whole version can exist. Today you visited the backstage of your story. You saw where you were banished from your own place, heard the phrases that demonized your intensity, recognized how many times you became the villain in the script written by those who needed you to fit. Under Jupiter Trine Lilith, none of this is a detour. It is context. It is proof of how much you needed to diminish yourself to keep belonging. But you also saw something else. The part that did not die. The intuition that never stopped seeing the crack. The clean anger that always knew when something crossed the line. The body that sank every time you betrayed yourself. Today, you gave this part at least one concrete gesture. A no that doesn't go back. A boundary you decided to sustain. A piece of guilt you refused to swallow again. From now on, life will test this movement. It will check if it was just talk or if it became posture. The transit passes, but the standard you inaugurate today can remain. If this video helped you see your Lilith with more respect, remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. This sustains the work and keeps this conversation active here. And if you want to seal the pact in the field, write in the comments, "No more shrinking." Take care of your truth with the same zeal you have always had for others. Take a deep breath, return to your axis, and continue the day from that place. We'll see each other in the next video.